It's glad to have you join us on the program. I'm Simisola Atikun. The Rivers State chapter of the ruling All Progressives Congress APC is in turmoil, with factions at odds over a threat to impeach Governor Siminalayi Fubara. The faction led by Tony Okocha, recognized by the party's national leadership, has called for Fubara's resignation, accusing him of impeachable offences. In response, the court recognized the faction loyal to former Governor Rotimi Amechi, led by Emeka Beke, who had criticized Okocha's demands. Despite the tensions, Governor Fubara remains optimistic, urging Rivers residents to stay peaceful and law-abiding. Meanwhile, Speaker Martin Zamewole and 26 other lawmakers boycotted a peace meeting called by Governor Fubara. In a separate move, the Amewole-led House of Assembly issued arrest warrants for the chairman of the Rivers State Electoral Commission, Justice Adolphus Enebeli, and 4 other commissioners. Another commissioner of the RCEC, Ibirembo Thompson, resigned, citing the Supreme Court's ruling on local government elections. Worried about this development, a former governor of Rivers State, Rufus Ada George, among other party chieftains, have called for calm, urging all factions to avoid inflammatory rhetorics and focus on peace for the state's well-being. Our public affairs analyst Alesta Wilcox joins me to unpack these issues. Thank you for your time. Well, there seems to be no end in sight to this political unrest in Rivers State, especially with this recent conflict between the factions recognized by the party's national leadership and those loyal to former Governor Rotimi Amechi. And what are your thoughts on this worsening situation in the state?
Well, Rivers State is a pupil of the absurd, from the mundane to the absurd. Nobody can really understand again what's happening in Rivers State. And the worst part of it is the fact that the Supreme Court came in and put total spanner in the works. When we are thinking that we're already getting to the end of the tunnel, the Supreme Court just came in and put a total spanner in the works. The last judgment of the Supreme Court is the most unfortunate judgment that that has happened in this country, because the Supreme Court is a court of policy, it's a court of direction, and they should know that, and they know that most of the decisions are far-reaching, and it becomes the constituted law, and they are supposed to give judgment that should be for good governance, maintenance of law and order, and to be able to move the country forward, like they've done in the past. But in the case of Rivers State, the judgment brought in more damaging effect than damage control. So a party thinks they have won, and so they are basking in the euphoria. Now it's affecting the multiplicity of others, because the APC in Rivers State is polarized into two. One, the group that is loyal to former Governor Mechi, that has a liking, a backing of the governor, and secondly, the other group that is loyal to the former FCT minister, talking about the former governor, that was imposed in Rivers State by the national executive of the APC. So it's like Rivers State has become a guinea pig of all forms of experiment and all forms of manipulations from forces both within and from outside. And I think this one now, one would be tempted to say that federal might is being brought into Rivers State in order to suppress or to promote certain interests and suppress the other interests. This is just exactly what's happening in Rivers State, and it's sad. It's unfortunate for a state like Rivers State that have always been known to be politically calm, politically relevant, politically matured. But this is really throwing spanners in the works in every ramification. And Supreme Court made it worse. That looking for solution might just not be in the horizon anytime soon.
Now, Governor Fubara recently invited members of the House of Assembly to discuss ways to resolve this crisis, but the lawmakers rejected the request. What does this indicate in terms of, efforts to end this feud between both sides and the crisis in general?
Well, I was glad when the governor extended that invitation to the members of the State Assembly. But don't forget, these are persons that are at daggers drawn, and they are prepared to get their own pound of flesh from the governor. not because of their own, but because of their principal. Talking of the FCT minister, Nyesom Wike, these are persons that are 100% loyal, and of course, the victory they got from the court can be attributed to the person of Nyesom Wike, not just because of them. I mean, that is obviously clear to everybody. So they are taking the bidding, they are bidding from Nyesom Wike. They are not acting on their own. Those assemblymen, they are not acting on their own. So it is only the only person that can tell them what to do and they will do is Nyesom Wike. Nobody else. They are not acting on their own volition. So I was surprised when I was gladdened that the governor chooses the path of peace, chooses to, okay, let us start afresh to find a political solution. Look, even after a court judgment, we have been told in this country, after a court judgment, you still negotiate implementation. Okay? The Supreme Court has given their judgment. Yes, though majority of people do not agree, it didn't go down well with a lot of people. In fact, I'm sure that majority of Rivers people are sad and with the judgment of the Supreme Court, the way the judgment was crafted and the way everything went. But that is not a leeway for there's always magnanimity in victory. So that is not a leeway for the members of the assembly to understand one thing clear, that, well, this is Rivers State. If it burns down, even if you have won, even if the court has given victory, if it burns down, of what value is it to you? If you win to the what of tomorrow, you still have a long political future ahead of you. Don't forget, the people that today they're in power does not mean that you'll be in power tomorrow. Even if you win today, assuming you're not conceding, and God forbid that at the end of the day, the government even leave power, does that guarantee that you will be there tomorrow? Are the Rivers people sleeping? Yeah, the Rivers people have been docile for a long time. We've been very docile. And that is even why we get to this level. Because of our docility, we are not the Rivers people that we used to be in the 80s, in the 90s. The vibrant Rivers people. This generation of Rivers men and women are docile. And that is why things like this could have happened. That an individual can hold the entire state to ransom. An individual can command so much with federal backing to deal with that's what's happening is happening. So they will not, except the governor told, except the Ishmael told them, except the FCC that tells them. Because I had thought maybe there was a behind the scene negotiation before that invitation, and which would have been a good point. At least let us sit down and discuss. Even if you have your own stance, let's sit down and discuss. So I'm calling on religious leaders in Rivers State, because as it is now, even the traditional institutions most of them are already already taking sides. Some are on the side of Wike, some are on the sides of Fubara. But I think the people that hold the ace now are maybe the religious leaders. If there are still quality religious leaders in the country, in the states, I know that most of these politicians, they go to salvation ministry. Most of them go to salvation ministry. So I think it beholds on the presiding pastor, David Ibiome, to wait in and look for a way to bring peace in Rivers State. I mean, that's one church I know most politicians go to, and I've seen Wike go there. I've seen most of the assemblymen go there. I've seen Governor Fubara go there. So that seems for me a rallying point. And I think maybe a man like David Ibiome might hold the ace to resolving this issue, and there have to be peace in Rivers State. That's just my thinking. I don't know how feasible that will be, because I don't think politically, even thinking traditional, this might bring any sensible, any reasonable solution. Maybe the religious leaders need to step in at this point to see how they can turn the tide around.
What then is your reaction to the threat issued by an ex-militant to resume hostilities if Governor Fubara is impeached, despite President Tinubu's intervention regarding the Supreme Court's verdict?
Look, nobody wants anarchy. We've had it very, very rough in Rivers State in terms of militancy and violence in Rivers State. And it's heading towards that. It's heading towards that. But I don't think it will get to that level. I don't know if President Tinubu wants to intervene any longer, because his intervention, the first instance, created most of this problem, because his intervention did not go down well with the vast majority of the people. With that, is it 7 or 8 points agreement that was signed by the governor then? You know, even after signing that, he saw the resultant effect, and the president will not want to bring himself down. I don't know. He's a politician, and I don't know what goes behind the scene. I want to believe that he can still rein in Mr. Nyesom Wike, because Nyesom Wike is doing this because he has a federal job and he has some federal backing. I'm sure if he's not in the federal cabinet or he doesn't have a federal backing, I'm sure he will not be able to go this far. So President Tinubu, yes, hold the ace, and in the unlikely event that there is disruption, militancy in Rivers State, it will not all go well for the country, and so we should avoid it. Nobody is happy what is happening, and nobody wants the governor to be disgraced. This is Rivers State, for goodness sake. Nobody wants our governor to be disgraced out of office on account of that Supreme Court. It's just the Supreme Court judgment that has brought, I mean, at some point there was stability. But if the Supreme Court judgment has not taken as far as when I read that judgment, some of the contradictions I see vis-a-vis earlier pronouncement of the same Supreme Court in matters like this, it beats my imagination. I'm not kidding. I'm not a lawyer, but I have read too many. I am interested in what happened in the judiciary. I've read too many judicial pronouncements, too many judgments in respect of this kind of matters, defection. But the way the Supreme Court approached this issue as Rivers State, the way the Supreme Court lambasted the governor, put all the blame upon the governor, even with false timelines. I saw a lot of false timelines that the Supreme Court used. But of course, they're the final court of the land. So that's why a lot of people are scared of that judgment, because that judgment contradicts so many other judgments that the same Supreme Court has given. But this is where we find ourselves. This is where, because I mean, people, it is not there's not this iota of reign of impunity. I can do anything, and of course, if I have the court behind me, I can get scot-free. And which society will thrive on that? Which society will thrive on such things? We've seen how the judgments that come in favor of this assemblyman, how they come in favor of the 27th. They all came from Abuja and from a set of particular judges. And those judgments come speedily with the speed of light. I mean, there are barrages of cases pending in the courts, in both High Court, Court of Appeal, Supreme Court. How come this Rivers State case just went like a flash of light and it has gotten a judgment? Even the judgment came barely 2 weeks. Barely 2 weeks after barely 2 weeks or thereabout after the councils made their final submission. Barely 2 weeks. Meanwhile, you have a window of 90 days to deliver judgment. How come? What the speed? So this is giving a lot of concern, a lot of misgiving to a lot of people. How come these cases took so much speed? If there are not some remote hands somewhere, so much speed, and the governor was thoroughly lambasted. Every blame was put on the governor, including the conduct of local government election that every state conducts. Rivers State own this has to be. Come on. So I don't believe any militants will have in Rivers, because I know how we have suffered it. We Rivers people, I know how we suffered militancy, both for the pro and the against. I don't believe we should come back. So we shouldn't get to that level. And this is where reasoning to prevail over any other political consideration. Reasoning will prevail, because violence, no matter how minute, does no one any good. And that's why, like I said earlier, I'm still calling on religious authorities. Now, they might hold the ace, because every one of them goes to church. Every one of these actors, I mean, there's no Muslim among us in Rivers State that in political office. So every one of us goes to the church. And I've mentioned a particular church, Salvation Ministry, which every one of them go to, either formally or informally. So Pastor David Ibiome, the pastor I love so much, has a key, might hold the key to bringing these parties together and to ensure that peace prevails in Rivers State. That is the only way. Dialogue is not the only way out. Not that one, yes, the assemblymen, they will think they have won, but there's magnanimity in victory. Because you never know tomorrow. There's always a tomorrow. That's just what I can say. May God bless Rivers State.
Oh, Mr. Wilcox, we'll take a short break now and the conversation will continue when we return. Do stay with us. We'll return shortly. Welcome back. We're still discussing the political dispute in Rivers State, despite the intervention of the Supreme Court and the verdict. The conflict continues. Political affairs analyst Lester Wilcox is still with us on the program. Now, recently, the lawmakers have followed through on their threats by issuing an arrest warrant for Justice Adolfo Senebeli, chairman of the Rivers State Electoral Commission, along with 4 other commissioners. This comes alongside the resignation of one commissioner who cited the Supreme Court's verdict as the reason for his decision. Do you think that there's any justification for the planned arrest?
I think, as I said, the assemblyman is trying to do a kill on all of them now. So they are trying to take as much advantage as possible. Now, why would they start from local government, the State Electoral Commission? They want to control the apparatus of the conduct of local government elections so that their own, if they're threatening the chairman with all kinds of threats, he will succumb to doing their bid rather than doing the governors. Remember, state electoral commissions are not, they are all tools. They have never been independent. That's for sure. If you look at it, every state. So whoever is able to use whatever force or power to control the SEC, the State's Independent Commission, will have his way through the local government elections. Now the committee has fixed August 9th for a rerun of local government election. So they are trying as much as possible to either intimidate, bring him to submission so he will do their own bidding. That, of course, is what they are doing. But of course, I don't know what the legal implications are. I'm sure. Let also not start a new round of legal fireworks with respect to the SEC, for that now to start derailing the local government election, because sometimes to the SEC chairman or the independent body, they also have a right. They can also approach the court to seek injunctions and all that. So it's messy. So for me, I think the assemblymen should tread with caution. That is just the least I can tell them. They should tread with caution. Right now, yes, you think you are basking in the favor of your victory at the Supreme Court, but there is always the other side of the coin. Yes, as much as you want to take as much advantage in a short time with your victory, to see how much advantage you can take for yourself and for your group. But again, it's Rivers State we're talking about here. The commissioner that resigned, it is his right to resign. Those that, and some of them have gone to court, it is also their right. What the law says, I don't know. I cannot interpret what the law says or the full implications of the Supreme Court judgment. There are, lawyers have a way of interpreting full implications. Sometimes if they are at a loss, they go back to the Supreme Court for other even if you have seen the CTC. So it is anybody's right to so will. But what the assemblyman is doing now to the RISEC is to find it, because you cannot sack the chairman. The chairman is guaranteed a 5-year term, I think. I don't know how long he has spent. So what they're trying to do now is to cow him to doing their own bidding. Because if the next local government election comes and they're not able to install their own stooges or their own members as local government administrators, they also find it difficult when the general election comes, because local government, who controls local government, has a lot of influence. So what I'm saying here is that they are only trying to flex their own power in order to get control of whoever of the SEC. If the chairman budge or succumb to their threat and their pressure, well, that means that They have succeeded in cowing him. And when the election comes, they will see that their own members were all declared winners. That is just the game plan. That for me, that's just the game plan. Who controls what? And that was why this whole judgment came at the same time, strip the governor bare naked in the marketplace of all his own apparatus. But let's say he navigates around it, because it is Rivers people that is taking the brunt, and let's see how Rivers people will react in order to maintain their sanity.
Finally now, a former governor of the state, Rufus Ada-George, has also intervened in the crisis, urging all parties to sheath their swords and let peace prevail for the benefit of the people of the state. However, it seems that peace is still elusive. What would it take, at this point to ensure peace?
Well, 2027 is like 2 years plus. Still far away, and 24 hours, they say in politics, is a very long time. It depends on how Governor Fubara is able to navigate through this crisis that he's facing. But one thing I can tell you for free, that Governor Fubara enjoys the support of the Rivers people. That's one thing I can tell you for free. Governor Fubara enjoys a commanding support of the Rivers people. So if in a free and credible election, you see, unfortunately, Rivers election has never been free and credible over the time. It has never been free, neither has it been credible over time. So even the election that brought Governor Fubara, he knows that it was never free and totally credible. But in a free, and because it now takes who holds the power, who has the power, and who holds who is able to manipulate the apparatus of states as to be able to command election victory. That is what happens in Rivers the majority of the time. So, but in a free and fair election, that will be, if it's conducted 10 times over, I am 100% sure that Governor Fubara will still be returned elected in Rivers State as it is today. Because a lot of people are seeing gross injustice against Governor Fubara. I'm not a PDP supporter or any. I'm not a supporter of PDP candidate as far as that then is concerned. I've always been sympathetic to the APC all my life, the progressive. But when people saw what was happening to Governor Fubara, a lot of Rivers people put away political sentiments and even tribal sentiments. It now becomes like it is now two camps, those for and those against. It's no longer along party lines or ideological lines. People saw gross injustice happening, and people saw that this is unwittingly the use of might against somebody presumably weaker, and that is where the Rivers people are having challenge in really comprehending exactly what is happening. So, I said that answers your question. In a free and fair contest, Governor Fubara will win in 2027 if he chooses to contest. And if all this political wave turmoil is laid to rest, and he continues in office and remain in office till 2027, Governor Fubara will win again and again. That's for sure, because the Rivers people are behind him. But again, it depends on how he navigates through this trying period and how the balance of power is as at the time of the election.
So far, this situation has raised concerns among residents and political observers about the future stability and leadership of Rivers State. We only wonder how this will pan out eventually. A political affairs analyst, Lester Wilcox, we truly appreciate your time on the program. Thank you for talking to us. And that's all on this episode of the program. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.